Welcome, everyday leaders. Here we are. It is, what day is it? I always say, what day is it?
Hey,
It's Thursday. It is April the
16.
16th already.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is flying by. And this week has been a pretty big week. It's almost week 5 for us in quarantine. And we're dealing with all kinds of things. We're battling, we're trying to fit in, we're trying to figure out our life again.
Mhm.
And we've had some pretty fun guests this week on Everyday Leaders. And we started off with Jamal Sylvester, Mr. Me Too from Indianapolis, and he was telling us about what's happening in his life. Chip Baker from Texas with the Success Chronicles.
Yeah.
And, he's just such a connector, and he is all about gratitude and
Mhm.
and having fun recapping the Everyday Leaders 50 and 50 Leadership Summit that happened February the 29th. He was a guest, and so he shared with us some ideas and some takeaways that people that didn't get to come got to share and listen to him.
Yeah.
And then we had Deb McAllister from Oregon. She is going in the front lines supporting the healthcare workers. So being a real strategist and trying to give them support in any way as a leader. And they're building beds and all kinds of things, that we're seeing all over the country so far. So we went Indianapolis, we went down south to Texas, we've gone out to Oregon. Last night we had Chris McCarthy and Shannon Ferguson from Fan Saves
Uh-huh.
and telling us about how they, as entrepreneurs, are reinventing themselves through all of this COVID-19. And so they're up in Canada, and now we go all the way to New York.
Yeah.
And here is Jordan Gross, author of The Journey to Cloud Nine, which I think is just an amazing concept, first of all, when you know about it. But we just did a big thing with Greg Storch this week in a panel, and it was all about consistency.
Mhm.
And Greg just celebrated his 100th episode of his weekly roar on his page, The Lion's Den. And it really told a lot about all of us as panelists to say, what are we doing consistently and how does that matter when we reflect on it? And that's the biggest thing. And so, Jordan, you're like the perfect guest to come on this week.
You.
So thanks first of all for joining us today, and I want you to really tell people about consistency in your book and everything that's going on in New York.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for the kind intro. If I didn't have my quarantine beard, you could see that I was blushing from you flattering me. But I was just telling you before, my mom hates me right now, and I'm in New York, and I just switched locations. So I live in New York City most of the time with a couple of roommates, a couple of buddies, and I was there for about 3 weeks by myself though. And the situation in New York is very different. It's very ominous. It's very gloomy. My best example and story is that I walked outside on a Monday morning, and this was before you could just go for a walk to get groceries or to get exercise. I literally was just taking a walk, and I first of all was walking in the streets, so there were no cars anywhere. Which, if you're in Manhattan, you know that that's never a possibility. So I took full advantage of actually walking in the streets, and I was walking down Park Avenue, and there were no people except for delivery drivers on their bikes, and they all had masks, right? So this was before. On Saturday, it's mandated that you have to have a mask if you go outside in public. But this was way before that. And just being outside and the only people I saw were masks, it was like this post-apocalyptic movie sci-fi experience. And I equate it to the mask version of Bird Box. You know that movie where it was Sandra Bullock where they did the blindfolds because the disease had to do with seeing it.
Mhm.
Well, that was what it was like, except with masks. And it was just so surreal to think that I could be in New York and I couldn't just pop into a restaurant to grab some food or pop into a store to window shop. I don't shop that much, but to window shop or something. It was just it's so strange. Never in my life did I imagine that I would be in a scenario or we would be in a scenario like this. But like I said, I changed scenery. This is my brother's childhood wallpaper in the background here. So I got home to Long Island, New York last Tuesday. I did the 3 weeks I self quarantined. My mom has MS, so she's in the high risk pool. So still social distancing in the house. But having been home has been really nice. It's really great to be with family, see people, talk to people. Um, but yeah, it's even weirder, honestly, in suburbia now. And
Mhm.
my brother picked me up from the city, and I was sitting in the back seat because we wanted to stay sort of far apart. We picked up groceries on the way home, and again, it was like this Bird Box scene where people were, gearing up as they got out of their cars, and they got out of the car and they sprinted into the grocery store and tried to get all their things and come back. It's like they were being timed to come back in as quickly as possible. So just so surreal. But like I said to you before, personally, I'm just trying to be as helpful as possible to people, a voice of calm. My mom calls me the act of levity in the house, bringing some smiles and laughs, trying to be upbeat and sing a lot throughout the day. Um, so yeah, that's been my role, my experience here in New York so far. But obviously, it's such a devastating time. But as we all sort of sink in, you said 5 weeks for you now,
Mhm.
trying to get back to routines, get back to productivity, get back to efficiency, and really consistency. That's been so huge for my mindset and the people who I help or assist with their lives. It's just really trying to not make things normal again. I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but just make things feel okay, feel right.
Yeah.
Um, for the situation that we have.
I think when you said consistency and, all of us that are in this leadership journey, this tribe that say, how can I show up and add value to myself? How can I add value to other people today?
Yeah.
What we're learning, and I think I just keep hearing this theme of we've been preparing for this, for something like this for so long.
Mhm.
Not that we are ready or more prepared than anybody else to deal with it, right? We still have struggles.
Right.
But I think our mind is around how do we create consistent patterns so that we can feel like we have a little sense of control, right? Uh,
Mhm.
because when you get when everything changes, so
Mhm.
maybe you lived in Manhattan, but you worked, outside of the city, or you had to take a subway, right? Things that in your life have completely changed,
Yeah.
and so what you feel is safe has changed.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest part for people. We have to start our new consistent habits
Yeah.
and patterns so that we can feel like, okay, I can deal with this, right? I can get up the next morning and say that everything is going to be okay. My new normal, if you will, with
Yeah.
family and friends. And so what does that have to look like?
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because like you said, I breathe consistency. I try to make every day with obviously room for spontaneity and adventure so things aren't monotonous, but I really try to have my routines. I have my, reflections at the end of the day where I share about my cloud nine moments and how I can create this cloud nine type of day for myself. But when we're facing such unprecedented times, one of my messages has been being okay with imperfection in the consistency, right? And my favorite story to tell right now is this ancient Chinese proverb, and it goes like this. Uh, a farmer had a horse, and one day the horse ran away. And his neighbor comes over and he says, "Oh, it's just such a shame that your horse ran away." But the farmer looks at his neighbor and he says, "You know what? Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad." And then the next day, the horse comes back to the farm and it actually brings another horse. So the neighbor comes over and he says, "Oh, I guess it was good that your horse ran away because it brought back another horse." And the farmer says, "Oh, maybe that's good and maybe that's bad." The next day, the farmer's son gets on top of one of the horses and falls off and breaks his leg. So the neighbor comes over and says, "Oh, I guess it was bad that the second horse came because your son broke his leg." The farmer says, "So, you know what? Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad." And finally, on the last day, the government comes to the farmer's house and they say, "We're looking for young men to enlist into the army. Do you have any children?" And they see his young son and they see that he has a broken leg. and they say, "Oh, we're not going to take him for the army because he has a broken leg." And that's the end of the story. But you realize that whatever you're doing, whatever is happening in your life right now, it's always going to be uncertain. There's always going to be uncertainty. There's always going to be situations that come up that you can never expect, right? It's unprecedented scenario. But if you have the mindset that things are what they are, and bad is not cripplingly bad, and good is not overwhelmingly good. If you have this mindset where things are not too good, not too bad, you can really adapt and handle whatever adversity comes your way with the clearest of all mindsets, just like the farmer, right? So as you go about your daily routines, if you wake up and need to hit the snooze button, right? Which I don't promote, but if you do, you hit the snooze button and you wake up and you say, "You know what? That wasn't good or bad that I hit the snooze button today because that's just how I felt." And then the next day you don't hit the snooze button. Well, it's not great or too terrible that I didn't hit the snooze button because tomorrow it might be different, right? And maybe hitting the snooze button leads to more productivity for the day because you just feel more like you have to go at it, or maybe it doesn't. But that's really the mindset I've been taking on is just allowing people, even as consistent as I want them to be, allowing them to know that imperfection is totally acceptable, especially right now.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think that word grace, you didn't say it, but so many other people have been talking about it,
Mm,
giving ourselves permission to be like, it's okay. You don't have to feel like you're on this habit trail anymore. Like you got to do everything,
mm,
right? You can just slow down, take it easy, figure out what that new normal looks like
right.
and create those values for your new consistent measures, right? And
Right.
so I want you to talk about, creating something consistent is not always just easy,
Mhm.
right? We're kind of programmed that way. We've
Yeah.
always been, you just wake up, you've developed a life of this attitude.
Yeah.
And so for those people that are still struggling and going, I just feel lost. I'm feeling like I'm just not connected. I'm still not sure. I'm a C personality on that disc profile, and
Mhm.
I need to know a date. When is this gonna be over, right? When can I at least go out and go to the park or take a trip or go to the lake or whatever?
Yeah.
Um, you started a big project
Mhm.
last year.
Yeah.
And so I want you to tell people about that and your thoughts on how you even thought of this idea and then the steps that you took to actually accomplish it because it was a big deal.
Thank you so much. And honestly, well, you were one of the people who inspired me with the 50 interviews with everyday leaders. But I did a model. Well, first, the story goes that I was ready to go back to quote unquote the traditional path. And I wrote my first book in January 2018, and I spent like 9 months really trying to promote it. But then I thought that that was it. And I was just going to apply for jobs again and maybe go, work on this book stuff on the side. But I had this really cool chance encounter. And I was in the back of an Uber in New York, and I talked to the Uber driver because I saw a boat in the East River, and the East River dock said the boat said Cloud Nine on it, and I asked the Uber driver what Cloud Nine meant to him, and he started telling me about the time that he got married, and the time he had children, and the time he felt like he was a kid again because he was doing something very playful and imaginative. And I realized that there were these pivotal moments we have in our lives where we feel like we're on cloud nine. So I asked more and more people, and I did hundreds of these interviews, right? And I came up with a number of pivotal moments where we feel like this, but also some characteristics and patterns where living a cloud nine life really comes to fruition. And I kind of thought like this has some legs. There's an opportunity here, and do I want to just share my findings, or do I want to share it in a creative way? So I decided on the creative route, and I created this story, and I had this book, but I didn't want to put this book out there just yet. So I wanted to do some work on it, and I went and I did 90 podcasts in 90 days to spread the word about this journey to Cloud 9.
No, wait, that's crazy. People are going, "You did what?"
So, as a guest, I wanted to guest on 90 podcasts in 90 days. And the way that I accomplished that was all through consistency. And it took a full month of planning, and I consistently reached out to 10 podcast hosts a day. And before that, even, I created a spreadsheet of 476 podcast hosts from LinkedIn who I was connected to or I could connect to. And I made sure that they were all within the realm of personal development or mindfulness or meaning and purpose and things like that. I reached out to 10 a day for a month, and then I continued doing that. And then I scheduled interviews this was back in May, June, and July of 2019. So I had a couple interviews either a day or a week, and I just had to get 90 in 90 days. And yeah, it was about showing up every single day. So I always had to be on my game. I had to be very consistent with my schedule, my planner. I write things down, so it was always handwritten. Um, and I always had to add value to the host, so I had to very consistently make sure I was reviewing and writing recommendations and listening to their shows before I got on, right? It just became this process that I loved every single moment of. And I don't like to use cliches, but the one that I do always use is that I love the journey so much more than the destination, right? So for me, it was the consistent practice was never about just getting the 90th podcast, right? That wasn't what made me feel so great about it all. What made me feel so great about it all was that I knew I did every single thing that I could in order to become the best version of Jordan who had the opportunity to do 90 podcasts in 90 days.
Mhm.
So that's what consistency is all about to me. You're setting yourself up for your interpretation of success.
Mm, I love that. I typed this in here because you said the journey was the joy, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the destination, and many of us forget that
Mhm.
because we say, "Well, I'm planning the trip, I'm doing everything, the planning part,
Right.
and I wanna make sure that even if it's not a linear path, that I can get to my goal."
Mhm.
And so we forget, though, to reflect and celebrate all of those landmarks, right, that got us to where we needed to go.
Yeah.
And, when you talk about getting on 10 podcasts in 10 days, and then, maybe one of those canceled, right? Not
Mhm.
everything went smooth.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about, if you can,
Yeah.
one of the biggest challenges may be to hit that 90 goal, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever have a time where you were like, "I'm not sure that I'm gonna get there?"
Of course. Yeah. Whether it was day 1 or day 72, there was always that thought in the back of my mind, right? Because of cancellations, because of it not working out perfectly. My last interview was on July 30th, which was the 90th day. And if that person canceled, then I wouldn't have made it, right? So even up to the 90th day, there was always that doubt, right? But honestly, it's kind of cool. I've read 2 books in the last 3 weeks, and one of them is very reflective of the mindset that I had throughout the entire podcast journey, and it's Have a Little Faith by Mitch Albom.
Mhm.
And this concept of faith is so important to me. And whether you're a person of faith and religion is very important to you or not, that's not what really matters here. It's just knowing that things are going to work out, whether it's your initial intended definition of how it's supposed to work out or not, right? So even if I didn't get that 90th interview, like I said before, I still did everything that I could have that was within my control, right? And the fact that it was out of my control, if say that 90th interview was canceled, I would be okay with that. And you know what? If that 90th interview was canceled, I would have had a heck of a good time scurrying around trying to find that 90th interview at the end of the day, right? Because that's what's fun. That's what creates the cool story,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but
It does.
it's always just the joy of going through it and figuring things like Marie Forleo, right? Everything is figure outable. I truly believe that. And if you can't figure it out, then you smile at the phrase, like everything is figure outable. So if you have that mindset, you're going to go about trying to figure it out with a smile on your face, even if at the end of the day, what you figure out is not what you expected to figure out, you still learn something, right? So that's what's most important to me. And a phrase I've been using recently, it's going to be in a new book that I have coming out at some point soon, is if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose, which is very popular. But what I added to it is, but no matter what, I learn, I learn. Right. So to me, that's what this entire situation is about right now. We're just learning about ourselves, our people around us, society as a whole, and how can we use those learnings to better impact our futures.
Mhm. So I want to talk to you about the article because we're talking about reflection, right? And so you wrote this amazing article that I think every single person that was involved with you said, "Oh my gosh," right? You got all these followers. You got 90 people that said,
Yeah.
"What he learned these 90 things." And it was just such a great follow-up because if you're detailed and you know what your goal is and you have a vision for it,
Mhm.
I'm sure you had that kind of thought out before, like, what are the takeaways and the highlights that every single person can learn
Yeah.
from just being consistent?
Yeah. So the article was the 90 lessons that I learned from doing 90 podcasts in 90 days. And I split it up into subcategories, and I don't remember all the subcategories. I think there were 10 subcategories with 9 lessons in each, maybe, or maybe there were 15 subcategories with 6 lessons each. I don't remember exactly how I set it up, but I can remember some of them, and it was like some were very specific, and it was, here's how I planned
Mhm.
my 1 month of planning. So this is what I did. I did 10 interviews a day. I did 10 outreaches a day. And here's my strategy for how I reached out to each person, whether I knew them or did not. So whether it was cold outreach or warm outreach, this is the messaging that I used, and this is the value that I added to them. So a lot of it was helping others in a way so that they could create their own journeys, whether it was 90 podcasts in 90 days or writing 10 like writing 10 articles in 10 days. It doesn't really matter. I was trying to make the learnings universally applicable. So that was what some of the article had to do with, and that I was definitely aware of as I was going through my process, saying like, okay, this is going to be in my article afterward because I know it's going to help people who want to follow along this journey. But then there were some things in the article, like what stands out to me from that article, because I honestly, thank you for bringing it up. I haven't talked about it in a while. What I remember is there was a section about what I did wrong, right? It was a couple of these lessons, like what I would do differently. And one of the things that stands out is that I didn't have a real purpose with all of these interviews. And sure, there were purposes. I wanted to accomplish a big goal. I wanted to show consistency. I wanted to talk about Cloud Nine, but I didn't have something tangible for the listeners after, right? I didn't have anything for them to go to, or I didn't have like a giveaway or anything like that. I didn't have something that made them want to continue following on my journey other than my hope that they just liked who I was as a person, right? So that's something that still rings true, and it's something that I would change if I did this again, because it's really nice, especially when you're trying to add value in conversations. To my personal branding mentor, Rich Keller, always says, you want somebody to walk away from your dinner party with a parting gift, right? You want them to have a gift that makes them think about you afterward,
Mhm.
right? So give them a little something. I wish I had that. Um, but yeah, as I think more about the article, um, it was just as much for me as it was other people. It was just a way for me to reflect on the entire experience, and it
Mhm.
was truly one of the most life changing journeys I had ever gone on. It was really the people I met, the conversations I had, the skills that I learned, what I found out about myself and others. It was something I could never imagine what I'd be like right now if I didn't do that. So it was really cool, and I'd recommend setting a big, hairy, audacious goal like 90 podcasts in 90 days to anybody because of the article that you get to write afterward. You get to share the story. You get to really get introspective and learn about what it takes to pursue a goal like that. Um, and whether, like I said, it's 90 podcasts in 90 days or just writing 20 days in a row or interviewing 50 leaders in 50 days, something like that. That is a really meaningful and worthwhile experience in and of itself.
Well, we just congratulate you. It's such neat to have you on this platform because I love to celebrate people that are really conquering and saying, I can do this.
Mm.
Because there's so many people that are just not ready. They haven't gotten to the mindset yet to say that it's important enough for them to step into their own beliefs and do that. And the freedom, right? The freedom after you do that to say,
Mm.
I own it, I created it,
Right.
I accomplished it, and now I can go back and really reflect on the symbolism. I'm getting a little feedback, but it really is important because you step into your own purpose and your own confidence, and I think that's what the key is because now you speak into this as I could do that again. Like I know exactly how to guide other people through
Mhm.
the journey that I took.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it applies to multiple journeys, right? So it's not like I can just do this for 90 podcasts in 90 days, but just talking about the new book, right? Like I reach out to 100 people every day, and I've been doing that since October. So I know the behind the scenes work that it takes in order to promote something, in order to talk about yourself, right, in a way that's not egotistical or annoying or anything like that, right? Learning the little ins and outs of, I guess, marketing work that is based on a specific individual, right?
mhm.
Um, which is challenging, but it's necessary at the end of the day as well to promote and do things like that.
It's so encouraging. I think there's so many people that need to hear this. And so I'm going to hold up your book because The Journey to Cloud Nine, I got it right here. It's a great book.
Thank you.
And so if you need to get this on Amazon, go there and get this and really understand and connect to Jordan's story because it's so encouraging and inspiring, especially right now, to think, what are the gifts that I have that I'm just not tapped into? I've said, we're all hearing it. I don't have enough time.
Mhm.
I don't have enough money to research that. I don't have the people around me,
Yeah.
right? Right now on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook, everybody is having free leadership summits
Mhm.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So, just joining a group and getting connected to get that inspiration that you need,
Right.
I think is super, super important. And so,
Totally.
tell us about your next book.
Yeah. So this is a new project that came up and kind of a crazy ride, but this was 3 weeks ago now. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I wrote a 12,000 word parable, just a short story that took me a couple of days. And have you ever read Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes. I
So
think I have it right back here on my bookcase.
really, it's one of my favorite books, and obviously the short nature is great, but the meaning, right, about embracing change, such a wonderful way to share with people how we should look at ourselves during moments of change. And with the situation that we're in right now, yes, it's all about change, and I think that book is something great to look at right now. But more so than change, it's about navigating uncertainty. So my creative mind said, how do I create a parable about navigating uncertainty? And I wanted to make it fun, just like, with the mice in the maze. And I wanted to make it entertaining and enjoyable and short and sweet. So I wrote about 4 different toys in a crane game. And in this game, the crane comes down and it's going to pick up these toys, and the toys have 4 different responses to the uncertainty that is whether or not the crane picks them up and introduces them to the outside world. So the toys are called Opti, Pessy, Sage, and Chill. So one of them is very optimistic and wants to embrace the uncertainty. One of them is very pessimistic and thinks that the world is going to end every time the crane comes down. One of them is very laid back, sort of indifferent, too cool for school kind of response. and one of them is Sage, who is the spiritual, everything is going to happen, and very calm and sort of like the leader, but can't really get the message across because there are these different personalities. So basically, what the book does is the goal is for the readers to relate and see how they're responding in times of uncertainty. And again, I'm never saying that there's a right way to do things, but what I do want to show in the book, and a message that is not a spoiler that I'm happy to reveal, is that there is a wrong way, I think, right now. And you see in the book that Pessie, that toy, her pessimistic, negative responses to uncertainty create a negative ripple effect, and it starts to really badly impact the people around her. It maybe ruins relationships. It doesn't add anything to making the problem better, right? So I'm not saying that you have to be overly optimistic, or you have to be chill, or you have to be very, go with the flow about things. But what I'm saying is try your best not to constantly be the Debbie Downer or the pessimistic one, because that's going to make other people feel the same way, and then it's going to make them not want to be around you, which leads to all different kinds of bad things, right? So that's what the book does, and it has numerous funny instances of how they all respond to uncertainty, and yeah, it's a really things happened really quickly and in a really cool way. I sent it to a couple of my favorite authors, seeing if they could write a forward for it. And next thing I knew, I got connected to one of their publishers, and we chatted, and then signed on with one of the publishers, and hoping for the book to come out in the next couple of months. So things happened really quickly.
All right. So what's it called? I'm going to type it in here.
It's called What Happens in Tomorrow World. And it won't be out until at least the fall or the winter, but just starting to work on platform building and stuff for it now. So yeah, What Happens in Tomorrow World, right now the subtitle is a short parable about navigating uncertainty.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
It's really fun, and I think we need a little fun, uplifting story right now, and it almost feels cartoon like. So maybe there'll be a kids version too.
Well, you never know who's going to pick it up, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. When we create, we don't know who we're going to connect to.
Mhm.
And so important about your journey is that you have connected to 90 different people, 100 different ideas.
Mhm.
Putting an article out there that talks about the journey, which is going to connect them to their network and their network and their network.
Mhm.
And the world is so small right now. We're all isolated, so we're all on social media platforms,
Mhm.
and we're trying to figure out, like, what am I missing? Where are the gaps in my life?
Right.
And so having you on here just to provide a little bit of inspiration, right? Just start writing a parable, right?
Yeah.
Something that's actually
Yeah.
going on in your life that you believe in.
That's right. Take the time to create, take the time to inform, take the time to explore your curiosities, right? I hope and pray that nobody listening is too affected, and you're still working, and you still have your spirits high. But even with the extra time, you can't go outside on weekends maybe. Um, Write that book, or share that article, or sing that song, or do that dance, right? And share it with others to inspire, to promote. But mainly just do it for yourself, right? Because you never want to look back at this time and say, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done that, right? That's my whole thing, is that I'm always bridging the gap between the person that I am and the person who I know I should become at the end of my life, right? So
Mhm.
with everything going on, this is a good time and a good experience. Good time to experience that.
That's wonderful. Chuck Parker says he
Yeah.
loves your books.
Thank you so much. And, thank you.
Yep. That's so great. The fan club all around social media, and that's what I think is great is you get that little bit of lift, right? When you know that somebody else is on your journey and you say, "This is my cloud 9 moment.
Mhm.
What is yours?" And you have to have some kind of a similar path, right? We have our unique experiences,
Yeah.
but we all at some point say, "I felt that. I understand what that feels like."
Yeah.
to experience that joy of owning a process.
Mhm.
And that's what we're just saying, like, everybody needs to own that. It's free. You
Mhm.
just have to take initiative
Yeah.
to create that consistency that then builds that momentum for your life.
Yeah, and with the cloud nine moments, trying to have something, some semblance of your ultimate cloud nine moment every single day, right? So that's one of my consistent things. Is every night before I go to bed, I reflect upon my cloud nine moment from the day. And what that simply means is, what was the peak euphoria of my day? And even if I didn't truly feel euphoria for the day, I'm still realizing that there are amazing moments every day to reflect upon. And tomorrow there's going to be at least one amazing moment to look forward to, right? So maybe it won't be the number one moment of my life, but it's going to be something that has the same characteristics, just like you said.
Every day with gratitude.
That's right. Yeah. The other cliche that I go to is gratitude's the one thing I'll never try to switch up or make my own. I think just daily gratitude is all there needs to be.
Man, Jordan, you are so wise. You're not that old, but you have so
Well,
much
like
wisdom.
you're a baby, I'm trying to look a little bit older. I've always been told I have a baby face, so maybe this is what I need. But like I said, my mom's gonna make me shave this thing when I have to see other people again. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wanna thank you. It's, here it is, getting ready for the weekend and thinking about how much longer we're gonna have to survive in this, but at least if the weather starts to warm up, the sunshine can bring a little bit of joy into our heart and make us think like, "You know what? If it's another 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it's gonna be okay," because we just have to buckle down and start to begin to live into our strengths.
Yeah.
And so you have really encouraged us today to do that. I cannot wait for your next book. This
Yes,
is
thank
gonna
you
be
so much.
really fun, and will you
And
come back on and help us and promote it a little bit with
I would
you?
I would love to. I would love to talk more about the characters and maybe even chat with some people about who they are in response to uncertainty, who they were when they look back at this time and see who what they were acting like, right? So it's a great time for reflection and realizing, when things are very up in the air, who is the person you're going to become? And I have a question that I want to just leave people with, that I put in the book, and it's, if everything changed tomorrow, right? If every single thing changed, who is the person that you would want to be? And that's what I want you to think about. What happens in tomorrow world? If everything happens differently tomorrow, who is the person that you're going to want to be?
I put that on here real quick.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it.
Yep. It's great to think about, you know? It's a challenge
Yeah, there's a
because
lot to it.
yeah, man. Jordan, I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Really fun.
So great to see you, and let me know what else I can do for your community, for you. Um, always here to support and do what I can.
The Everyday Leader campaign, I love it. It's stepping into your life and changing the world like Jordan has just taken us through, and, so many tips about consistency. If you are just joining us, go back and hit the replay. Go to YouTube, subscribe, just follow the Everyday Leaders as their journeys are continuing, and they are all talking about their cloud 9 moments. This is
Mhm.
about their life, and so at the end of the week here, Jordan's saying, "Hey, I've been inspired to write a new book about this whole process." And so everybody can do this. It's within you to just step into your own strengths and lead your life with success. And so we are just constantly encouraging. You can follow us on everydayleaders.com and go to the Facebook group, Everyday Leaders, Instagram, Everyday Leaders 50 and 50, and follow the podcast. But it's an amazing experience to start something like what we have and say, put a number to it, right? That starts the accountability. And I think that's what's so neat about us sharing this journey is 50 and 50, 90 and 90, 100 and 100, whatever that looks like. Just
Mhm.
set that goal and that really truly grab a couple of people, make yourself accountable, and then enjoy the journey of what happens through that.
Mhm. Beautifully said. Yeah.
Amazing. Jordan, thanks so much for coming, and we really appreciate you. And we're going to continue to watch what happens in New York and be thinking about you and your family,
Thank
and take care of yourself out there.
thank you so much, and same to you, and same to everybody listening. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. And now, how can we find you specifically? I want to give people links to get a hold of you.
The best place is LinkedIn. Just message me on LinkedIn. It's Jordan Gross. And then everything about the book is journeytocloud9.com.
Okay. All right. We will include that in the notes. Thank you so much again for stopping by tonight. And be safe and have a really great rest of the spring of 2020.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye.
Thanks, Jordan. Bye.